Let's talk about
Yeah.
eating to nourish. That's such an important point.
So they're actually, if you talk to alternative medicine physicians, they'll tell you that our soil is depleted, that our produce does not have the nutrients that it used to because of industrial farming practices. Is there proof of that, though? Well, there was a study actually performed between 1950 to 1999 looking at the nutrient densities of many different fruits and vegetables. So over 49 years, and they found a statistically significant reduction in the amount of certain key nutrients. Three of them, six of them specifically, three of them being the ones that I focus on: vitamin C, protein, and iron. So that's proof. And this study ended in 1999. And that's proof that basically our produce is not as healthy or nutritious as it used to be. And so one of the big things that I am a proponent of is taking nutritional supplements, is obviously really focusing on whole, real foods over, once again, we mentioned the ultra processed foods. And so some of these things can kind of work together. So once again, nutrient density being important. So eating the rainbow of fruits and vegetables, eating, ideally, if you can, I'm a proponent of going organic because there are some studies that show that organic produce does have a higher nutrition profile than non-organic. However, I also understand that some people just can't afford it or don't have it. That's okay. I'd much rather have you eat a conventionally grown apple than, let's say, an organic fruit bar. And so super important to try to stay with those whole foods, those foods that still look like what they were in their real state. It's funny because I grew up in the middle of Michigan. It's a tiny town, middle of Michigan, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And my parents are first generation. And when I would eat at home, we would eat fish, rice, vegetables, kimchi, garlic, those foods that actually look like what they are.
Yep.
But then I'd go out with my friends and it was all meat and potatoes. It'd be McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King and Taco Bell and Kentucky Fried Chicken. And a lot of those foods, you could not really tell what they originated. What was their form, their original form? And so one simple thing that I encourage my followers to do is just try to eat more of those foods where you can tell by looking at them where they're from, because that's going to tell you that it's not ultra processed. It's going to have a higher nutrition profile. It's going to overall be better for you.
I agree. I always say, look, how it came off the farm or how God made it, whatever resonates with people, that's it 100%. If it comes in a package and it's got more than 5 ingredients, it's usually not your friend. And I know that's a hard transition for a lot of people to make, but that to me
Mm-hmm.
is like root, you know, that foundation number one. Like that's such a big part. Like start cooking at home. I made a post the other day, something about seed oils. I don't know. Somehow it came up and some lady said, it's just so hard to avoid them. They're in everything. And I'm like, not if you
It's
cook at
hard.
home.
No, yeah, yeah. If you go out, it's in everything, and how can you control? But I agree. Cooking at home and limiting your ingredients, it just makes sense. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is all of that can really show on your skin,
Yeah.
and that's one of the main causes of aging is
Yep.
nutrient depletion and our skin getting thinner, collagen degradation being the other thing. It's kind of hand in hand. Because we're not getting enough protein. We're not getting enough good protein to help with the collagen of our skin.
I agree completely. And that's a hard one for women getting enough protein. I think that I know that I literally just have a hard time getting that much in. But also, I think societally, we've sort of been taught to avoid it. I know that as folks get
Yeah.
older, they tend to eat less and less protein. Their ability to digest it decreases because their stomach acid is decreasing, their stomach lining's atrophying. It's really a really vicious downward cycle. Maybe
Limited budget.
yeah, they're on a limited budget. And then to come to find out from Dr. Gabrielle Lyon that you've got to actually eat more protein as you age
Yeah.
because protein muscle or muscle protein synthesis isn't activated unless it gets harder and harder as you age. It's like, oh my goodness, no wonder people start looking so aged.
Well, sarcopenia is obviously a huge issue getting older, the breakdown of muscles and how our muscles get smaller. But the other issue that comes up with that, and I haven't heard her podcast with you yet, is breaking your hip. There
Yeah.
was a study that found that if you're over the age of 50, which, we're kind of in that range, and you break your hip, it's like a 20 to 30% mortality rate if you break your hip within like 12 months.
Oh yeah.
And so really, as you're looking at longevity, yes, there are some studies, anti-aging studies that do look at reducing the amount of protein, potentially causing you to have longer lifespans. But when you look at health span and being healthy, being strong, being active, we do need to have enough protein so that we can stay strong and so we can stay active, so we can do those exercises that will help with our fast twitch muscle fibers. So in case you're walking and you trip, you've got the muscles that are working that can help support you so you don't fall and break your hip and then lead to a true mortality event.
Oh, yes.
And so definitely protein super important for sarcopenia, for being active as we age. But for those people who are more skin minded, super important for your skin to look healthy and youthful, because 70 to 80% of our skin is made of collagen. Collagen is a large protein. And if you're not getting enough protein, you're not going to have enough collagen and your skin will get thinner. There's a reason why women who are in their 70s and 80s sometimes have skin that's so thin, it's tissue paper thin and even tears from little scratches.
Yep. I always say if you've got to eat collagen to make collagen, and I am with you on the hip fracture. We were taught that day one at chiropractic college that
Yeah.
a hip fracture is the kiss of death, period. I mean, that's it. And whenever anyone asks me why I am so adamant about strength training, I'm like, so I don't break a hip. I mean, that
Yeah.
literally is like goal number one. I just want to have mobile hips that aren't going to fracture on me, because it's actually worse in men. The mortality risk goes up so significantly, and it's actually worse in men than it is in women. It's crazy. Like, your chances of dying. And actually what happens is most people end up in the hospital, they get pneumonia and they die of pneumonia. And some of them are so aged and sarcopenic and just completely, I don't know, just kind of falling apart at the seams that they won't even reset the hip. I mean, what a
Oh, geez.
miserable way to go, So eat your protein, lift your weights. There is actually, I don't know if you know about that data, but there's data showing that people who lift weights have much better skin on their face. They look younger. Their face holds its shape better. I was like, yes, 10 points for vanity and strength.
No, I think it's so important because, there's a fallacy that walking is all you have to do as you get older. I know that my parents and my in-laws, like, they do a lot of walking and they go, oh, I'm exercising, I'm walking. But when you walk, all you're doing is working those muscles that propel you forward, and they're slow twitch muscle fibers. So, although I think it's a good exercise in general to get your steps in, it's not the same, and that's not going to prevent you from falling. It's not going to allow you to work those muscles that will stabilize you if something happens to you, like you trip. And so I think that we've done a fallacy, unfortunately, in traditional medicine, where we talk so much about how walking is so important and that's all you have to do as you get older. It's not. Like, you literally are not working the right, all the muscles that you need to. If you can't walk backwards and jump and twist around and things like that, then you're not going to be healthy as you get older. And it's just literally one trip could be the difference between life and death.
Yep. 100%. I completely agree. And if your face is wrinkling and your skin is sagging, your joints look the same inside. It's a complete connection there. So if your collagen is degrading on your face, it certainly is degrading in your joints.
So we lose about 1% of the thickness of collagen every year, starting in about our mid-20s or so. Now, women, once they go through menopause, they start losing upwards of 2% a year. And that's one reason why, once again, as I mentioned earlier, some women, as they're in their later years, their skin is so tissue paper thin. And so collagen, being a protein, super important to eat enough collagen to help to support that. And there's collagen in other parts of our body.